the best thing to do if you're starting out is to find somebody that has achieved the success that you'd like to achieve, and then reach out to them, learn their secrets, and take the shortcut to success. Don't try to do it all yourself. So somebody like yourself, Dwaine, expert in the space, if you're a listener of Dwaine's, he's a great resource to learn about this stuff. Certainly that's what we do on our website, is provide education out there. So I think the best thing to do, if you say, hey, I'm an active investor and I want to move into a different arena, a great thing to do is to partner with somebody that's already doing it. Or at a minimum, you can be an investor. Investors that invest with us, they say, well, hey, Chris, like if I want to do this myself, what do I have to do? I said, well, you're already investing. The first thing you should do is look under the hood, understand everything you can about the investment. We put out monthly reports, but then we also have our quarterly financial statements with everything from the property that comes out. The best thing to do is, just like if you're investing in the stock market, like Warren Buffett, he's looking through all the reports and look for things that are going on within that company. Go through the rent roll, figure out, okay, what are they spending per unit to do any rehabs that they're doing? What were rents last quarter? What are they this quarter? Why is net operating income going up or going down? What's happening in the market? And you can talk to the operators of the sponsors and ask them all these questions. And that's what we did. Ultimately, my partner and I, we were investors with a group. And then on the first deal we did, we partnered with that same group and said, hey, help us with our blind spots, give us some credibility to make sure, that we don't step on a landmine that we're not aware of. And it's just like I've done in the medical device industry as well. When I hire somebody new, I partner them with somebody that's experienced, like an apprenticeship, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, that senior individual did that's on the team. They can learn those mistakes, and then you put them in situations so that they continue to develop. And that's why it's so great to work with a mentor and experienced sponsor that can help guide you through those things. And even if you're giving up 50% or even 100% of the profit on your first deal, the lessons you learn are invaluable.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Chris Larsen. Chris is a real estate investor, author, and founder of Next Level Income. Next Level Income helps investors become financially independent through education and investment opportunities. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, really looking forward to talking more about this subject. I had mentioned before on the pre-call that infinite banking is kind of a topic that is not like mainstream. And like I said, a lot of people that are not familiar with it, they just definitely need some more light to be shined on it. But before we get a little deeper into that subject, would you mind talking about how you got started in real estate and kind of what your current focus is?
Yeah, Dwaine. Again, thanks for having me on the show. You mentioned, big piece of what we do at Next Level Income is education, and shows like yours are awesome to help educate investors. So really excited. I became an investor I was about 19 years old when I started in the stock market, and I talk about it in my book. So if you're listening and you'd like to learn, a little bit more about kind of how I got my start and what I do and what we do at Next Level Income, you can go to our website, nextlevelincome.com, and click on the book link and get your free copy there. But I was in college. I was racing my bike, and what I wanted to do, Dwaine, was be a professional cyclist. But I had a friend, and it actually was our family friend, Clint Provenza, who got me into cycling. And he gave me this money magazine, and it talked about this new thing called a Roth IRA, and how if you invest in a Roth IRA and you put in the stock market, and through the magic of compound interest, you could be a millionaire with not a lot, maybe like $500 a month. And I was like, wow, that's I like money. I was always kind of entrepreneurial. My father passed away when I was 5, but he was an entrepreneur. So my mom always said I kind of had it in my blood. And I was selling things like wrapping paper when I was 12 years old. I always had jobs and little businesses. So I started investing in the stock market, opened my account with Vanguard, and I ended up day trading. So it's the late 90s. You know, the market's wild. It's going up. It's going down. You know, some years going up 30%. And I was making like $5,000 a month day trading in the stock market. The downside was that I wasn't sleeping on some nights and I was stressed out. And I had one day that was 5 figures, and it was just like, for me, that was a ton of money. It was like 20% of my capital that I had at the time. So I had some positives and some negatives, but through that experience, I looked at other investment options, and real estate was one that was always in front of me because my parents, my stepfather and my mother bought single family homes. My stepfather was a contractor, and they'd fix them up and maintain them. They had a few rentals that they had. So I started to look in, and what really appealed to me, Dwaine, was the aspect that you could actually negotiate and buy a property at less than market value, and then you could actually improve the property. So I bought my first income producing property, my first investment property, age 21, and I built a portfolio, and my goal was to have a portfolio that I could make $10,000 a month. And I thought, if I can make $10,000 a month for my real estate portfolio, I'm good to go. So the only piece that I didn't have was the money. So I went out, I found a job in the medical device industry through kind of a confluence of events. I loved it, spent 15 years, and I actually still manage a part of that business. And it allowed me the opportunity to grow capital and then put it into these real estate investments. Well, after almost 15 years of holding the single family portfolio, and I was looking at the equity, and just kind of after dealing with headaches and things like calls on my honeymoon, I was talking to different people, and somebody mentioned that I should look into multifamily real estate. And I thought, well, it's the same thing. And he said, well, no, there's some differences. So when I dove into it, and I talk about this in my book, Dwaine, I talk about how you can be a passive investor, you can get cash flow, you can still control appreciation, like I mentioned earlier. But it had some really great tax benefits. So as a high income earner, it was something that really appealed to me. And that began my journey in the multifamily space in 2012. And ultimately, I sold my entire single family portfolio and moved it all into commercial real estate.
Wow. Yeah, really definitely going to be digging into the multifamily sector and kind of your pros that, the areas that you like to invest in and the kind of stuff that will help out our listeners. But I quickly had mentioned at the beginning of the call regarding infinite banking, and I think that'd be a perfect segue because like, so we're talking about financial security and all the different types of vehicles to help you build wealth. So can you explain what that concept is of infinite banking and how people can utilize this concept to supercharge their investments and use it as an actual bank?
You said something, Dwaine, in the beginning that really hit me. You said this isn't something that's mainstream. And part of my mission is to make investing in real estate mainstream, specifically commercial real estate, but also this infinite banking concept that we talk about. And I actually rewrote my book and I added a chapter. And in my book, it's chapter 3, and it's called Your Opportunity Fund. And what I started when I was 30 years old, right before my first son was born, he's 10 now, was basically a high cash value insurance policy. And it's an infinite banking type policy. Speaking of kids, there we go. Who's this?
This is my daughter. Just as we were talking about beforehand, this happens. Okay, babe. Daddy's going to come up and talk and look at it soon. Okay. Thanks for showing me. See you soon.
Well, that couldn't have been more perfectly timed because the impetus for me to start these policies was the birth of my first child. And what I didn't plan to use these policies to fund our real estate. What I planned to do, Dwaine, was to use these policies basically like a 529 plan. So my wife and I decided instead of a 529 plan, we would fund these high cash value insurance policies. And the infinite bank concept, as I talk about in my book, is a concept that was developed by a man named Nelson Nash. He passed away here not too long ago. He was really a genius in the space. And what he figured out was if you structure these life insurance contracts properly, you can maximize the cash value, minimize the fees. So you basically get this policy that grows in a tax efficient manner, the cash. You still have the life insurance component, But then you have this cash value that you can essentially take out of the policies. And I'm kind of simplifying it, but you can take out of the policies and you can use it for other things. You can use it to finance the purchase of a car. You can use it to pay for a child's college education. You can use it to fund retirement, and you can even use it to invest in things like cash flow real estate. So we have a white paper on our website. If you want to learn more about kind of how you would structure this, you can check out the banking page at nextlevelincome.com, and you can download a free white paper there and learn a little bit more about kind of how that all works.
Yeah, the thing you had just highlighted is that the mainstream, because a lot of times when people get their first job or they start making a little bit of money, they'll call a financial advisor and they'll offer this 529 and say, this is what you need to do, and fill out the paperwork. And by the time you blink, you're into this thing 5-6 years and you invested into this, comparatively to this structure here where you have so many different options. And one of the bigger things, because we talk about building wealth through real estate and alternative ways to building cash flow and kind of build up for retirement, is utilizing this strategy that is not talked about and unheard of. So definitely encourage people to go and check out that white paper and kind of learn a lot more about the process, because we kind of scratch the surface. There's probably so much more detail that you can get into, but just for the sake of just kind of introducing this to the listeners, I think this is a good segue. So I appreciate you sharing that. But
yeah, absolutely.
And then kind of going to my next kind of line of questioning is regarding like the multifamily, how you sold your portfolio to kind of get into the multifamily sector. Can you kind of talk about, for people that, because I know I have a lot of clients and people that listen on our call that have probably a, pool of single families or have a rental here, and they always kind of talk about how to transition. And then you can probably talk about your journey of how you transition from selling and getting into multifamily. So can you talk about that transition and how other people can do that as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Dwaine. And so first and foremost, just like infinite banking, I wanted to learn how the rich invest. So, you talked about the 529 plan. All rich families, they don't have 529 plans. They don't have 401ks. They use things like high cash value life insurance. They have 25, 30, 35% of their family's net worth in income producing real estate. That's not how mainstream America invests, because mainstream America isn't getting these secrets of the rich put out to them. So first and foremost, infinite banking, secret of the rich. Same thing with commercial real estate. So I didn't know any better. I just knew that, hey, I can buy a house, I can rent out the rooms, and boom, I'm a landlord. Like, this is great. What happens is, and I think this gets missed. If you have a house, how much, and even a rental home, what's the return on your equity?
Hey, this is Dwaine Clarke, host of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And I want to share with you a great resource that I'm using right now from my website. For a long time, I thought I was doing the right things with my search engine optimization. But after having a conversation with my friend Chris Reed over at Ardo SEO, I found out I'm not even scratching the surface. I am missing out on tons of business and opportunities. So if you're struggling like me to get more customers and leads to your website, which is the main point of having one, then you need to call my friends over at Ardo SEO. These guys will do a complete audit of your website, a full market research report, and build you a customizable, actionable game plan that will transform your website from where it is today to a website that drives your business forward and achieve your goals. I'm very fortunate that for my listeners, Chris is hooking us up with a video review of your website that he will do personally. So to take advantage of this, please leave us a review on this podcast and go to the link in the show notes below, or go to ardoseo.com and remember to tell them that Dwaine sent you.
Yes, well, whatever is left from, if there's any renovation, stuff like that, and whatever the appreciation is. So it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's, but like if you think about it, if you have equity that's built up in that home, if you buy, or let's say you buy $1 million property and you put $100,000 down and you're making $100,000 a year, that's 100% return. If your equity grows and you have another 100,000, yeah, you have that equity, but if you're still making $100,000 in, your return on equity has actually gone down. So the return on that equity you grow is basically zero. So if you could pull that equity out, then you can put it back to work and do things with it. So what I looked at was my portfolio, and I realized I had all this equity that was basically, it was lazy. It wasn't really doing anything with properties. So my 30+% returns that I started out making in single family were now dwindled down to less than 10%. They were 7% on average. And then the secret that, people don't like to talk about when you start making money is that your tax rate goes up and you lose a lot of these tax benefits. So people, we talk about, pay your fair share and do that. Well, I can assure you, if you're making $200,000-$300,000, that you probably feel like you're paying your fair share because you're getting into these 34% incremental tax bracket. So my 7% return after tax was like 4%, Dwaine. And I thought, okay, I'm actively managing these properties. I'm getting phone calls on my honeymoon. And I'm paying tax on my returns. What I found when I looked at the multifamily space, if you structure these investments properly, one, I wanted to do it as a passive investor. I was stressed out. I was working 60, 80 hours a week. As a medical rep, I was on call, an average of, 6 days a week over the life of my career. It was crazy, right? So I didn't need any more phone calls or headaches. I wanted something passive. And what I found was these multifamily investments, in my opinion, had lower risk and the returns were about double what I was getting in my single family properties. So I thought, this is a no brainer.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that really kind of turned the light bulb on in my head, Dwaine, was I moved into the medical device industry because of the demographic trends. I knew baby boomers were getting old. They were active. They were going to need surgery. They were going to need things like knee and hip implants, which is where I started in the medical device space.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at the multifamily space, their kids, the millennials, needed apartments to live in. And I thought, well, geez, they're going to need places to live for a long time. And if you look in my book, I have this big upsloping trend. And what's interesting, when I rewrote my book, I talk about how the fastest growing segment of renters today isn't the millennials, it's the baby boomers, because they're selling their homes to unlock that equity, similar to what we were just talking about. But also they don't want to deal with their landscaping and costs. They want to be able to travel and do things like that. So the demographics really appealed to me, the returns appealed to me, and the passive nature of the multifamily space appealed to me. And that's why I call it the Holy Grail in my book.
Absolutely. And it's kind of for people that, like they understand the concept, like, yeah, multifamily, commercial real estate is definitely the way to go and the path. Can you talk about kind of steps on some, regular investors that are listening on a call to kind of find sponsors or find people that are doing it so they can be able to invest and become a passive investor like you did?
Yeah, Dwaine, I think as I talk about often, the best thing to do if you're starting out is to find somebody that has achieved the success that you'd like to achieve, and then reach out to them, learn their secrets, and take the shortcut to success. Don't try to do it all yourself. So somebody like yourself, Dwaine, expert in the space, if you're a listener of Dwaine's, he's a great resource to learn about this stuff. Certainly that's what we do on our website, is provide education out there. So I think the best thing to do, if you say, hey, I'm an active investor and I want to move into a different arena, a great thing to do is to partner with somebody that's already doing it. Or at a minimum, you can be an investor. Investors that invest with us, they say, well, hey, Chris, like if I want to do this myself, what do I have to do? I said, well, you're already investing. The first thing you should do is look under the hood, understand everything you can about the investment. We put out monthly reports, but then we also have our quarterly financial statements with everything from the property that comes out. The best thing to do is, just like if you're investing in the stock market, like Warren Buffett, he's looking through all the reports and look for things that are going on within that company. Go through the rent roll, figure out, okay, what are they spending per unit to do any rehabs that they're doing? What were rents last quarter? What are they this quarter? Why is net operating income going up or going down? What's happening in the market? And you can talk to the operators of the sponsors and ask them all these questions. And that's what we did. Ultimately, my partner and I, we were investors with a group. And then on the first deal we did, we partnered with that same group and said, hey, help us with our blind spots, give us some credibility to make sure, that we don't step on a landmine that we're not aware of. And it's just like I've done in the medical device industry as well. When I hire somebody new, I partner them with somebody that's experienced, like an apprenticeship, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, that senior individual did that's on the team, they can learn those mistakes. And then you put them in situations so that they continue to develop. And that's why it's so great to work with a mentor and experienced sponsor that can help guide you through those things. And even if you're giving up 50% or even 100% of the profit on your first deal, the lessons you learn are invaluable.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, you're trying to avoid the landmines, working with somebody that's done it before, has a track record, have the experience, have the access to these types of opportunities. And it's just best to even tap into it. And it's like, kind of a cost for education, like you go to college, and this is kind of the same way, but it's moving you in the right direction forward to kind of help build that wealth for that future. So that's definitely the right steps to do. So I appreciate you sharing that. And you had mentioned
Absolutely.
a couple points that were also in your book. Can you also lay out some other, chapters that we're going to learn from it when people get access to it?
Yeah. So the book, I talk about my story, but I also give kind of a land map or a blueprint of how we go through the process of due diligence, the team that we've built. Also talk about how, most people, if you've never done this before, you think, okay, I'm going to look at this deal. Well, no, that's backwards. You want to build the team, the strategy, relationships in the market before you go after that. I don't know if there's any Simpsons fans listening, but if you are a Simpsons fan, there's an episode where they move Springfield. And I always tell investors, like, you can't move the apartment like they move the city in The Simpsons. So if you buy a great in a bad area, you're buying a bad deal. And that's kind of how I see things. You don't want to be, the best boat in a stormy sea, it's still going to be a really, really rough ride. You're better off having a rowboat on a calm sea. You can get a lot further and do a lot better. So, that's the thing. You kind of want to begin at a macro level and then work down. I walk through all that in the book. And one of my partners has a great series as well, YouTube channel, the whole 9 yards. So if you're interested in learning more about this, we can take you as deep as you want on any of these aspects.
Absolutely. And this book is already out already and available for people to purchase?
Yeah. So I published it about 6 months ago. I swear everything shut down, and 2 days later, I got notice that the book was published. So it's called Next Level Income. And it talks about how to make, keep, and grow your money using the holy grail of real estate to achieve financial independence. It is available on Amazon, but if you go to our website and click on the book link, you can get your free copy by putting in your address.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely let people know about that. Cause like I said, it's a great research. Like I said, we covered so many topics, but like I said, it gets deeper, down the rabbit hole, and pretty sure I'll probably lead to a conversation with you guys as well to kind of talk about that further. So, but yeah, looking forward to that. To kind of learn a little bit more about you. I know we kind of chatted a little bit pre-show, but kind of what's like a typical work day for you? And do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah, I think morning is critical, Dwaine. And I absolutely, when you told me, you have this part of the show, it kind of got me really excited because I couldn't have achieved what I've done without some of the routines that I've put in place. One of our first guest on the podcast was Craig Valentine, and he talks about the perfect day. He's got a book called The Perfect Day Formula, and he talks about working on your most important thing in the morning. And it resonated with me when I first kind of heard about this, because I raced bicycles from the age of 14. And when I was working for Medtronic, I was a sales rep, sometimes working 16-hour days. I get up at 5 a.m., I'd hop on my bike for an hour and I would train, and I kind of hacked the training. So, only training for an hour a day, I was able to compete with professionals on the weekends. So when I quit racing and I decided to build the Next Level Income brand, I applied the same discipline, and I'd read Craig's book and I was like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. But instead of getting up at 5 and riding for an hour, spending that first hour and a half of my day, what I'd do is I'd lay everything out the night before, what I was going to work on. And I'd get up, I do tea now first thing in the morning, but I have my coffee. And now I've actually added one additional tool. The first thing I do is meditate in the morning. And then I work on the most important thing, which is typically something related to my business. And then, by 6:30, 7 a.m., I've accomplished in an hour and a half what most people would take all morning to do from, say, 8 a.m. till lunchtime. So I think if you don't already do that, that is probably the biggest thing that you can do. If you're sitting there thinking, I don't have time to become an investor, or I don't have time to get in shape, or I don't have time to improve my current business, what I would challenge you to do is get up 5 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, 30 minutes earlier, put 30 minutes, an hour on your calendar to work on that most important thing, and it will be an absolute life changer. And then the other component to that, Dwaine, is, and I always used to tell reps that I trained when I was with Medtronic this, you need to live like you're a professional athlete. And what I mean by that is, we talked a little bit about the discipline, but remember that what you put in your body, what you expose yourself to, that's going to change the way you think, the way your brain works, the way your body works. If you want to achieve a lot, if you want to, be the best you can be, you got to fuel your body. You got to treat yourself right. That means diet. That means exercise. Mm-hmm. I've always been kind of a freak when it comes to that because of the cycling side of things. So it came naturally to me, but that would be the other kind of secret weapon. Because if you can fuel yourself and you can get an extra, 10 or 20% out of your morning, and then you can get another 10 or 20% of productivity out of your day because your energy levels, you're like a superhuman.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with that too, because I got 2 young kids, like you had mentioned, you as well. And me starting my day is that, before the kids get up, you want to kind of get, like I said, those most important things out of the way, concentrate on the health, because now you can be able to keep up with them. Now it's like soccer and basketball, all these different sports that you have to keep up with. And us, as we get older in age and the stuff, like you want to make sure that is on tip top shape. And I like that kind of that point where you mentioned kind of have that professional athlete mindset, because like I said, they take it so seriously and people kind of get intimidated by it, but it's something that is just very important for people to really achieve success, and not much harder than people think. Just waking up, getting it started, and you build a little routine, and it gets a little bit easier after some time.
It does. I mean, I remember one of my teammates talked about after he raced, he had a craving for salads. And I thought, how would you crave a salad? Like, that is the last thing I'd want to eat. But I will tell you, after improving my diet and my habits over the years, I have a salad every day for lunch, and I literally crave it. So it's amazing how your body, your routines, they change, and they literally reshape your body and your inner workings, and then your habits and everything. So no matter where you are, just take a little step every day, and you can certainly get to that point.
Absolutely. And are you using any like tools or resources that kind of help manage that? I know a lot of people use planners and electronics and things like that, but is there something that you use?
Yeah, so I kind of do a macro planning perspective. So I do, and Craig Valentine does a great job talking about this. So I would definitely point anyone to his book and his resources. And you can, like I said, you can check out our first podcast, and I think he even gives away his book on that podcast. But I plan out my year. I have 4 big goals, or 4 big areas that I plan for. So it's personal. So basically, well, let's back up there. First is health, because if you're not healthy, then I don't think anything else matters. You have financial. So for most people, that's going to be their business or their career. That's going to be around that. You have personal development, and then also social development. So I set out big goals for each of those for the year, and then I review those every week as I kind of go into the week, and I plan out my week and my days, and then I review those goals quarterly. And of course, I have my wife is in on all that, so she understands kind of what I'm working towards. So when I work towards that, she understands, oh, this is kind of the objective or the vision that we're moving towards. And I think it's, that kind of touches on another super important thing, Dwaine. Your partner in life, whether it's your spouse, your significant other, or even your friends, that's the support that you need. Like, you can't do anything in this world, in my opinion, without, the support of the team and your really tight relationships around you. And frankly, that's kind of what makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes into my final question, which is, perfect segue is about gratitude. And then you kind of mentioned family and friends. And like I said, the kind of the motivation from your father's passing and your stuff like that kind of motivate you for success. Can you talk about what you're most grateful for?
Yeah. I mean, it's, this has been a really challenging year in a lot of ways, Dwaine, not just for me, but probably for anyone listening. And if you're listening, you're thinking, man, this is a crappy year to be grateful for something. It's such an important ritual when you get up to say, hey, what am I grateful for? There's a great tool called the 5-minute journal, and you can use it on your cell phone, or you can get a paper and you can write it in there. But what the 5-minute journal is, it's something every morning you write 3 things you're grateful for. So some days it may be, I'm grateful that the sky is blue and that I get to take my dog for a walk and sleep in my own bed. It may be something as simple as that. And whatever it is, I think it changes day to day. But certainly the thing that I'm most grateful for is my family and my family's health, because as you mentioned, my father passed away at 41. I'm 42. So, he didn't get a chance to be a father, to his son and daughter. And my best friend died at age 18. And, it was a big motivation for me as well, is to really live, the fullest life that I could. And I don't think I really talked about that much. But that's really been a huge motivation for me, is just making sure that I get the most out of every day, and not only do this life that I've been given, justice and respect, but also my friend Chris's life, because he did not get to have the chance to do that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's, like I said, tough to always talk about that stuff, but yeah, I really appreciate it. And I know the audience really resonate with that as well. You mentioned, like I said, with the book, and you have tons of resources, because like I said, you're kind of your main mantra, and I can kind of get this vibe. It's like you just love giving back and educating people and kind of letting them know I learned so much on this call, and as well as the listeners. Can you tell us how to get in contact with you, how to get some of these downloadable guides and access to your book?
Yeah, Dwaine, I appreciate it. And, if you're listening, there's anything that you want to learn more about, check us out at nextlevelincome.com. The book is available with the book link. I'll send you a free copy if you're one of Dwaine's listeners here, by just putting in your address. Under the banking link, you can get that video and the white paper that we talked about. And if you have a question, if there's something that you want to learn more about and you think I might be able to help you, just reach out. It's Chris@nextlevelincome.com. Just my first name, Chris at nextlevelincome.com. And I'd be happy to point you in the right direction, or give you any resources that I can to help you on your journey. Because as you mentioned, Dwaine, it's, I got a letter in the mail and a couple bottles of wine, actually, from a young woman I helped out. And I had no idea, but I kind of pointed her to some resources, and it led to something that dramatically changed her health. And we sat down to talk about real estate. And she sent me this wonderful thank you note. And I can tell you how much, those little things mean when you hear that something you've done, impacts somebody's life. And certainly I could not have gotten where I am without help. And, I think it's just wonderful to be able to give back, to anyone else that's looking to better themselves and increase their journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make sure to have all of these links in the show notes as well. And like I said, people reach out, like I said, any questions at all. And yeah, but the biggest thing is to get those guides, get the book, start reading, educating yourself, so so you can start your journey as well. But Chris, I said it was a pleasure to speak with you, and like I said, it was a lot of valuable information you provided to us, and look forward to connecting with you again soon on other topics as well.
That sounds great, Dwaine. I really appreciate it, and enjoy that time with those little kids there.
Yeah, I know. That's thank you so much. All right, take care, my friend.
You too.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.